Hi, I'm Ari, I'm the Oak Witch, and welcome to my first ever Q&A about me and my practice. So about a month ago, I asked members of my Discord server whether or not they would be interested in a Q&A video. And I had some nice responses saying yes, that they would really like one. I haven't really thought to do one before on this channel because I figured it just wouldn't be something you guys would want or would really be interested in or prefer the educational videos that I make. But you know, I had people saying that they would really like to see one, and I had some people sending questions, and that was really lovely, so I'm going to answer those questions today. So these are all questions relating to myself and my practice, and yeah, I've got them here on my phone, so I'll be reading it off there. But yeah, first question. What does your day-to-day look like in your practice? Do you try have specific things designated to specific days? I'd say yes and no. I find nowadays my practice is a lot more intuitive and fluid. I'll do specific workings for specific days when I'm lining up with, you know, lunar magic or planetary magic. I'll obviously have specific days for doing those actual spells and workings, but in terms of my day-to-day practice, it'll look like meditating, it'll look like doing offerings to my deities and spirits, it will be like going out in nature and connecting to my local land. I perform hedge crossings, and obviously included in my day-to-day are all the workings that I have going on at the moment and things that obviously get refreshed and I start new things and spells end, so all of that's kind of like lumped into what day-to-day looks like, and obviously that changes. I guess that's my approach. I don't really tend to be too strict because my practice does change quite often. For example, when I was studying at university for my masters, I was so busy. I was just doing uni work all the time. It was quite hard actually to have a regular schedule for my practice. What I thought was quite helpful was having like every Monday refresh the offerings and make sure that I'm doing that on like a Monday morning and then meditating on this day, you know, so having a schedule during that period of my life helped, but now I'm a lot more fluid, but it does change. From December to January I was meditating daily, and now I just do it every other day. So yeah, it kind of does change quite regularly. What was your inspiration to start practicing? My inspiration, I guess, was my mum. She was my inspiration because she introduced me to the craft when I was younger. So I did grow up Catholic. I was raised Christian and went to Catholic schools, but when I was in year 6, year 7, so that like liminal space of being in like primary school and high school, at least here in the UK, my mum basically said to me, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm pagan now." And when she showed me some books and she, described it, and I was immediately enthralled. I was like, yes, no, this is it. This is it. And a lot of people say this, and a lot of people sort of embellish their childhood, but there were certainly aspects of my childhood where I can look back and think I clearly yearned for something different. I went to mass and I kind of just begrudgingly sat through it, and I didn't really engage much with it because I don't know, I was young as well, so I wasn't really engaging in a lot of philosophical and theological thought. But when I was, then around 10 or 11, introduced to paganism and witchcraft, it made sense. It clicked. I was like, yes, this makes sense to me. And I've been captivated ever since. So, in terms of my inspiration, it was my mum. She introduced me to it. And you know what? She still inspires me today. What is your favourite part of your practice? I would say my favourite part of my practice is... I have two favourite parts of my practice. I think if I had to rank them, I think just being out in nature, connecting with the spirits and being really amongst that magic of the earth. It might be a little bit of a cop-out answer because it's kind of like non-magical as well, just being out in nature, as a lot of people enjoy. So, but I think connecting to it and like really feeling the magic of, the forest, the lake, like really being out in nature like that is something which is my favourite. It's my favourite part of my practice, you know, like sometimes when you're just out and you're looking at a sunset, it's so magical, and I really like, you know, you just get that feeling of divinity that I love having that. But in terms of an actual like practice in my craft, I would probably say hedge riding, you know, spirit fly. That is my favourite part. I think because it's a little bit intense, so it can get quite intense. It's such a personal experience and such a moving experience as well when you do get into these states and you do have these things come to you. And I don't know, I just think it's so interesting to experience. And it's funny, like growing up in this sort of journey over the last like 10ish years, I know it's really annoying when people say this, but I was kind of doing it before I even knew I was doing it. And I know that like when people say it, it's a little bit like, really? But I remember, you know, my mum's always been quite good at sort of saying, you know, meditation's quite important. And, you know, I'd go to pagan gatherings where there'd be like guided meditation journeys, and there was like some journeying workshop I went to once when I was really young. And that whole experience of being guided through a scene and like having images conjure up in your mind, and you know, then afterwards you're interpreting those images. So I was kind of exposed to that early on to my journey through these like pagan gathering workshops, and I loved it. I really loved it, and I always like thought I want to like do that but more intuitively. What I was exposed to in the workshop was specific drums that'll help you really get into that trance-like state. When I was younger, I didn't really understand the concept of trance, but I sort of felt like shifting in consciousness, if that makes sense. I knew that I wasn't just, you know, closing my eyes and like daydreaming, you know? So I remember being like, oh, I want to do that, but without all that structure. You know, I want to just see where my mind goes. And for ages I was like doing that, but I gaslighted myself thinking like, oh, I'm just making it up. I had so much like imposter syndrome. I was just like, I'm just making this up, you know. And I always like longed for like finding other people who were like having this same experience as me. I was just like, am I the only pagan who's like experiencing this as well? And then I researched spirit flight. I came across it and I was like, oh my god, this is it. This is it. It was a really light bulb moment for me, and since then, discovering that, obviously I solidify my technique a little bit more. It's a bit more substantial and accurate to actual spirit flight, and yeah, and that's my favourite part of my practice now. As a solitary practitioner, what are the ways that you still feel tied to the community besides the Discord server? Do you attend moots or mind and body spirit shows? Have you ever participated as a vendor or discussion leader at these shows? That's a hard no to the last one. I don't have a shop or anything, and I have never been a discussion leader at these shows, nor would I really want to be honest. I have anxiety, and I think that whole process would probably scare me. But when I was younger, I used to attend a lot of community events. My mum would take me to so many gatherings and conferences, and you know, I loved it. I mean, I was a kid, I was young, so I took it for granted. I still loved the whole process of going to them, and I haven't been in so long because, I mean, I guess I've just been so swallowed up with university, and now I guess the whole pandemic has been a thing. So yeah, it's been a bit harder to go to these in-person events, but I still feel tied to community because during the pandemic at least, you know, I went to a lot of online talks and online conferences that people were hosting, and that was really lovely. It was so nice to see people, you know, see our community connect with each other in new ways online that, you know, hasn't really necessarily been that emphasized before, and that was really nice to see people come together during the pandemic. And obviously online through social media and my YouTube channel and making these Discord servers has just been a really strong way of feeling tied to the community. Yeah, it's been really lovely. Even though COVID certainly hasn't gone away, I think, you know, pandemic restrictions are coming to an end, at least here in the UK, and I would like to attend more moots and gatherings, in-person events again, because I miss it so much and I think it's nice to connect with people like in person. So I'm definitely aiming to go to more in the future. How has your practice changed, if at all, from pre-pandemic to now? A lot. Like, a lot. It's changed a lot. It's funny, pre-pandemic, I identified as a Norse pagan and an eclectic witch. I was a Norse pagan, I was a heathen. I really was connected to the Norse gods, and that was my path for a while. I think like many people, when the pandemic happened, there was a lot more introspection. People were spending more time with themselves and reflecting. Seemingly, maybe I've got that wrong, but at least that's what I was doing. And I guess was coming to terms with what was the goal of my practice. What was I aiming for and what I wanted to do? And what I found was, it's something personal to me, and I won't really go into detail here, but it shifted my entire perspective, my theology, and the gods I wanted to feel connected to and what I did feel connected to. So yeah, it changed a lot, and I came to Botanic polytheism, and that's just been a lovely thing, really. But yeah, so the pandemic, that shift happened during the pandemic, but yeah, pre-pandemic I was a Norse pagan. I think also during the pandemic my practice has focused a lot more into English folk magic. That's something which I've really latched onto and ran with it. It just really makes sense to me, and there's elements of my practice, for example, the use of hagstones. Always used hagstones, and something that my mum introduced me to. And so when I did some more proper reading into English folk magic and you learn about hagstones, it's it's things that you were always doing, and then that's solidified by researching more into your local folk magic. And yeah, so it was just really lovely, and that's something which definitely strengthened during the pandemic. So that's changed as well. What is a or misconception that you held that you had to dismantle within your practice? How did it hold you back, and how did you grow past it? This is an interesting question, and I have a clear answer for this one, honestly. As some of you may or may not know if you've watched my anti-Christian rhetoric video, I had an epiphany about this very thing, having this pre-misconception, and it was anti-Christian bias. I think I grew up in a pagan community which very much places us versus them, pagans versus Christians. You hear the rhetoric all the time, the Christians stole everything from us, blah blah blah, things like that, and very much the hatred for Christians in our pagan circles. And won't go into detail because you can watch my video if you want to learn more about my opinions on that matter, but that is something which I held. It's something which I really had to come to terms with, because we were reading a specific book for book club, and we were, as you do in book club, you discuss it, pick it apart, and sort of talk about how we felt about it. And I had some dear friends of mine come to me who, either were Christo-pagans or had, Christian elements in their practice, and they were saying, I didn't like this book, I hated it. I felt really offended by this book and really hurt. And, I had previously gone on about how much I loved the book, how much I thought it was really helpful for beginner witches. And I had to sit there and I had to really reflect. I had to sit back from the situation and go, how did I miss that? How did I not see that this could potentially be harmful for a group of people, for my dear friends? And, it wasn't about centering myself in other people's pain, but it was about taking a step back and just reflecting, going through that process of, well, why did I not even acknowledge that that could potentially be harmful to people? How did I miss that? What bias did I hold that I thought it was okay for someone to sort of make those remarks about Christians in our community? And, I realised that it was because, I had just absorbed a lot of that rhetoric, a lot of that thinking growing up, and you still see it in online community, it's everywhere. And I don't think people really realise that it actually affects a lot of people in our community as well. It was definitely something that I had to dismantle, and it's funny now looking back before at I'd never implement Christian elements in my practice. I was a pagan, I would do pagan things, and now going more into English folk magic. I'm like using psalms, I'm practicing Christian elements in my folk magic, and I love it. It's great. It's so rewarding and so interesting, that syncretism. So it is funny how much that like my practice has changed from dismantling that bias. So that's something. A small bit of advice and how I grew past it, just to summarize. When you're faced with this like opposition, when you're faced with people saying like a really strong disagreeing opinion of yours, and it's like almost attacking like what you believe, I think it's important to truly let go of that ego in your head that's putting up your defense mechanisms, that's saying, you know, this is an attack, we need to attack back. Because when people, like when my friends were coming to me saying, you know, I really didn't like this book because of this part here, it's very easy to get defensive and to take it as something which you've done wrong. And it's okay to acknowledge that, you know, maybe you have done something wrong, but it's not personal. So it's really about listening to other people's perspectives and truly taking them into account. You know, empathizing, putting yourself in their shoes. And I think at that point you're really able to come up with constructive things and how to actually move past it together, you know. So I think that's essentially what I think I tried to do with that situation, and it's really helped me now. So yeah. What inspired you to start your YouTube channel? What were your expectations, and how has that differed, both good and bad? So like with many people, I think the pandemic brought a lot of people online a bit more. And, you know, I've always been in online witchy communities. I was on Pinterest making like online altar boards, and I was on Pagan and Witches Amino. I think I was still on there. But anyway, like, so I've been online in like the witch community, if that makes sense. But I guess when the pandemic happened, I think I wanted to really connect with other witches, pagans, magical practitioners a lot more. I really longed for like making friends with people who thought like I did, and you know, we can share practices. I really wanted that. So I made a witch Twitter, which was previously a like gaming Twitter. And I then just ran with it. I was talking to other witches and, you know, just doing all that sort of stuff. And to be honest, before, on this Twitter that I had, which is my current Twitter, I had people in the prior like gaming community I was in, because I was always open about being a pagan witch, and I had people who were interested ask for resources, and I'd give book recommendations, I'd give websites to go to, blah blah blah. And I always thought like, I just need to like make a video about this to send people. Also, you know, at the same time I was watching a lot of like witchcraft YouTube as well. You know, I also watched Harmony Nice for ages, so I think I just sat back and thought, you know what, I have more time now, we're in a pandemic, and I also think I can provide like a unique perspective. I think I have a clear goal of what type of education I would want. And you know, I think about when I was really young, you know, when I was like 14 or like 13, trying to like Google certain like things about like gods online and trying to just scramble information from like random websites, because I didn't really have a lot of access to books. Wasn't really wasn't a massive thing as it clearly is now. But I just keep thinking, God, if only I had like a video like this to put like online that I could just see, I could just watch, someone to just talk me through it in a really just grounded way, you know, just telling me what it is and how I can make it like authentic to me. That's the type of education I was like, I want that education for my younger self. So hopefully I'm providing that for other people. That's basically what got me to start this YouTube channel. In terms of my expectations, I was fairly neutral, to be fair. Like, I understood the reality of how many people who try to make a thing out of YouTube, and I think I always had the opinion that this is just something I want to do for fun. If it reaches people, it reaches people, and that would be really awesome, you know, because I want to help people, I want to educate people. Obviously that involves getting people to actually see the videos, especially considering the amount of like misinformation and awful education there is in our community. But anyway, I think I had more bad expectations, with just, you know, maybe just negative comments, and, you know, I do get them, but I have been pretty lucky. You know, you guys have been really, really lovely and really supportive, and the comments I get are just 90% of the time really, really lovely, and I really appreciate it. How has your involvement in YouTube and Discord impacted your personal practice? I would say a lot, to be fair. I think because, you know, because of the pandemic, it's brought me so much closer to people all across the world. Like, I have friends in Ireland, I have a friend in Australia, I have a friend in Peru, I have friends in the United States and in Canada, and, you know, it's mind-boggling how people from all across the globe, we're all like connecting to each other. We all have really similar but really different magical practices, and it's just so nice. I'm really grateful for the friends that I've made, and if they're watching, love you guys. But, you know, being able to exchange tips and share our practices is just so nice. And I think that does impact your practice, because it opens you up to different perspectives, things that you hadn't really thought about before. It helps you grow. And having that environment where you're supporting each other in, you know, your journeys really does impact your practice in, you know, in really positive ways. So yeah. Have you ever had any major slumps in your practice? If so, how did you move out of them? Yes. I think everyone has, you know, it happens and it's fine. I would say a major slump was probably when I was in my undergraduate degree at university, and, you know, I was just busy doing other things. I was busy being a uni student, being a 18-year-old, doing 18-year-old things. I'll be honest, I haven't really got to say much more than that. But in terms of slumps that I've had where I feel burnt out, or the imposter syndrome overwhelms me and I feel really stuck, it happens every now and then, you know. What helps me get out of them is just letting them happen. It's very common to resist it, to go, oh gosh, you know, I'm not practicing, God, I'm an imposter, I'm such a fraud, oh, I need to do something, oh, but I can't do anything because I feel stuck, I feel burnt out, and I don't want to do anything, but I know I have to feel, you know, my mind goes through all these things, and I just try to remind myself, you know, just take a step back, acknowledge, yeah, I'm in a slump, I feel a bit stuck right now, and I feel really negative about my personal beliefs and my practice, but you know what, I'm just gonna let myself not practice for a few days or for a week and just see where I'm at in that period of time. You know, sometimes you just really need to take a step back and just say, okay, I just can't do this right now, and I'm gonna let myself. And this is what works for me. I'm not trying to say this will work for everyone, but I think for me, I just allowing myself, accepting how I feel, being able to actually let myself process those emotions really helps me in diving back into it when I'm ready to, when I feel better. Because for me, I think my slumps kind of coincide with depressive episodes, because I have depression as well as anxiety, so I think they do intertwine sometimes. So it's about working through it like that in those ways. But yeah, I might do a video on how to get out of slumps. If this sounds interesting to you guys, please let me know below in the comments. I will make a video to help if that, you know, sounds interesting to you guys. But yeah, and yeah, that was the last question. I didn't even realise. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this was interesting to you guys still. Please let me know if you want more videos like this, because I can't really tell whether you guys would actually be interested in just me waffling on about myself for however many minutes. You know, if you did enjoy this Q&A, let me know down below, and maybe I'll make a part 2. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support, and see you in the next one. Bye.